this. All right. Welcome to Venue Help Desk, our monthly August Power Hour. My name is Paul Petty. I am the co-founder, along with my business partner and husband, Ian Ramirez, and then our business partner in Orlando, Florida, Shannon Tarrant. So we welcome you. Again, we host these monthly Power Hours around this time of month. We love to feature educators that can help your venue business. We're all venue pros joining in, and this is always venue focused. So again, Venue Help Desk, if you are new to Venue Help Desk, you've already signed into our emails. We are a resource and guide for you. We have some easy to use templates. And then if we're not able to figure that out, we have helpers throughout the country that I can reach out to for those good questions. Again, a lot of times in the venue world, we need answers quick. So that is what Venue Help Desk is here for. So for today's monthly Power Hour, I would like to welcome our good friend and supporter of Venue Help Desk, but today's Power Hour educator, Christie Osborne from Mountainside Media. She's going to be talking and educating you today about tracking what matters, the only marketing metrics that you actually need. So welcome, Christie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I have to say, I'm so happy to be on a Power Hour. I attend these. I get so much out of these all the time. So it's an honor to be here as a presenter and a guest.
Great, thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, load this up, and we'll get going. Okay, I'm Christie Osborne. I'm the founder and owner of Mountainside Media. I specialize in ads, analytics, AI, and market research. And I have been doing analytics for 15 years now, not just as the owner of Mountainside Media, but also in my previous corporate jobs in the travel industry. And over the years, I have found that for most businesses, big and small, there's only a handful of metrics that any one business needs to look at any one time. The problem is sometimes these are different metrics for different businesses. And I'm not just talking about venues versus planners versus photographers or officiants or whatever, but actually where you are in your business. What is going on? What are the things that are working? What are the things that aren't working? So today I'm going to walk you through some metrics to think about for sure, but also I want to walk you through how to approach your metrics and your data so that you get the most out of them for your business. Before I dive into all of those things, I've also noticed that there are generally three types of people that I work with when I'm working with data metrics and numbers. And I've divided them up into archetypes. And I want you to take a moment to think about who you relate to the most. And it's okay if you don't relate to any one of them. If you have like a different style or vibe that isn't represented here, that's great. Go with that. But the how you show up as somebody who's looking at your numbers or metrics or somebody who's marketing will determine how you engage with your marketing metrics. So it's important to know how you show up in the world so that you're not trying to force yourself to do something that's unnatural. It's been my experience that when you force yourself to do something that's not supernatural to you, it's a lot of energy and it's hard to sustain. So the three archetypes are the scientist. If you identify as a scientist, you love experimenting. You like setting up a formal experiment. You like identifying what you want to have done. You set your goals, you set your actions, you run the experiment, and then you look at all the data and you make a decision for moving forward. So I am part scientist. The second is the detective. You're the person that attends all the webinars, is on ChatGPT for hours trying to like figure out what's wrong. And you do a lot of research. You might ask your colleagues if they're having similar issues or where the opportunities are. And you're constantly trying to get information in before you set up the experiment or make any kind of decision. So I'm a little bit detective as well. And then I'm not this, but I love these people. There's the magician. And the magician is this person who just throws everything against the wall to see what sticks. and sort of goes by intuition, which I love. I love intuition, to figure out what's working and what's not working. And none of these are inherently better or worse than anything else. But if you know that you're a magician and you're just going to throw a whole bunch of spaghetti against the wall, I think that's a great place to start. And I have some tools for you to make sure that you're measuring along the way so that you get a little bit of feedback and data that you can use. If you're a scientist, look, you might know a lot of the stuff I'm going to go over. And if you're a detective, again, some additional tools. But each archetype has a superpower. So understanding how you engage with your marketing and your metrics and what feels natural to you is going to help you when you start to look at your numbers and make decisions. So when I first started working in marketing analytics and numbers, I was told by many people that numbers weren't sexy, right? Like the sexiest numbers were like traffic and engagement. But what I wanted to do with Google Analytics wasn't sexy. And then post pandemic, I started seeing people saying, know your numbers everywhere, right? And I felt a lot like Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, where I kept on thinking to myself, I don't think you know what that means, right? Like, I don't think those words really mean anything to you. Like, what does that mean? Know your numbers. Because sometimes you can have all the numbers available to you in the world. You can know all your traffic, all your social media engagement, all your inquiry rates, all your close rates, all your booking rates, all your revenue, your profitability, all of the things. But sometimes it's not you. And I just want to take a tiny little moment before I dive into all of the metrics and all of the marketing numbers and say, if you are on this webinar thinking, I've got to like get my poop in the group, like things are not going as well anymore as they used to. I want to say that sometimes the outside world is beyond your control, and they have numbers that you're not going to be able to fix. You might be able to manage, you might be able to mitigate, but if it's beyond your control, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to fit into that larger context. During COVID, you were not one webinar away from scaling your your events at your venue because we were shut down, right? After COVID, there was a glut in the market with wedding venues. Everybody bought venues in 2020. Then, all of a sudden your competition went from like 5 or 10 to, 20 or 40 locally. The economy's been wobbly for the past 5 years or so, right? So there's a lot of dips and troughs that we haven't been able to anticipate. And of course, we're going through huge generational changes around what is expected, younger people expect from us. And so it's important to know your numbers. It's also important to put them in a larger context and understand when you can and cannot control something. Today, we're going to talk about what you can control. So before we dive in, I want you to just take a moment to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 on how well you think you know your numbers. You don't have to share it in the chat. This is just a check-in for you. Do you feel like you know your numbers? If you know your numbers, do you understand what they mean? And if you know your numbers and you understand what they mean, do you know what to do next? Do you have a good game plan to use the insights you're getting from your data in order to move the needle for your business? And, if you don't, you're in the right place. And if you do, hopefully I'll give you some, tips and tricks and tools that will supercharge that. Just take a moment to rate yourself. Ask yourself why. In the interest of knowing your numbers, there's a lot of numbers to know, okay? There's traffic, there's engagement, there's DMs, there's inquiries, there's, consults, how many people you can get to get on a consult or a venue tour with you once they inquire. There's sales rates, there's close rates, there's, profitability. There's a lot of different numbers. And I want to go through a couple of case studies with you to get you thinking a little bit differently about numbers. One number is does not necessarily one number is not necessarily good or bad. They mean different things in different contexts, right? So for this particular case study, I had a client who was on Pinterest. In fact, they had a side hustle of Pinterest consulting for other wedding professionals. And they were doing all of the right things on Pinterest. So for this case study, I'm going to give you a set of facts. And I want you to think about what you think is going on. Okay. You don't have to put it into the chat. I just want you to think through, as you're getting data and information, what you think might be going on and what you might do about it. So this client comes to me with these facts. She has strong traffic, okay? She's getting around 10,000 sessions a month to her website. It's super strong, a lot of traffic. So right off the bat, you might think that's really great. But I want you to just open yourself up and think, like, what else could strong traffic mean? If we're not going to assign good or bad to it, what might we be looking at with just strong traffic? Like, what kind of traffic? From where? Are they qualified to do business with this person? She's got traffic, but what kind of traffic is it? What's the quality of this traffic? She has a low bounce rate, and you can still access bounce rate in Google Analytics 4, but this was before Google Analytics 4 sunset, so we were still using the Universal Analytics, and she had a very low bounce rate. And oftentimes people will say low bounce rate or high engagement rate is really great. Okay, so far all the things look great. But the problem is that she's in a consult with me because her revenue is down, her bookings are down, her inquiries are down. So we have all these great numbers that all of the internet marketers will tell you are great, but something's not working right. So strong traffic, low bounce rate. Let's look at another clue. Most of her traffic is going to her blog posts. Now we're starting to get some insights. We realize that the traffic isn't going to her services page. So they might not be qualified to do business with her, or they might be at a different placement in the funnel. They might be just doing some research and there's not good, strong calls to action on her blog to guide them around the website, right? But again, strong traffic, low bounce rate, really robust blog. These are things that we're told are really great. But if we don't interrogate and inquire further when these numbers come in, we could be leaving a lot of money on the table, missing opportunities, and even having leaks that are just slowly and quietly draining our performance and our money from our coffers. So the last clue that we got was the traffic mostly was out of her market. So she was getting traffic from all over the place. She was up in New England. She was getting a lot of traffic from the South. Okay. We ended up having a conversation where we hypothesized what might be going on. And every single idea or hypothesis, we would double check against more metrics and more insights and more data. And so one of the hypotheses we had was, if they're going to blog posts, they just need to go to the services page, right? But then when we saw that a lot of the traffic was out of market, they're not gonna hire this person, right? So like, what do we do? So we started to look at what types of blog posts were getting traffic and what weren't. She was featuring real weddings. She was also featuring a lot of advice. And with that, the advice blog posts were getting the most traffic. And so what we realized was all of these out of market folks needed advice and they weren't going to book her. So what could we do to either get better qualified traffic or turn that traffic into money? And we decided to do both. We decided to shift the blog posts to more in-market, SEO optimized for location real weddings and information about the location. And then for the just general advice blog posts, she created a PDF that she sold for $17 that she could sell to those out of market folks while we were in transition and transitioning her blog. So you can know your numbers, that you have strong traffic, low bounce rate, traffic to blog posts, and out of traffic market. But unless you start having a conversation with your data or your consultant, you're not going to get very far in terms of knowing what to do. When she first sat down with me, my answer wasn't make a PDF. I wouldn't have known how to consult around that if we hadn't engaged with the metrics more. Because nothing on this page with your analytics or your insights by itself is going to help you make good decisions. Fundamentally, data is inert. Data and numbers don't carry inherent meaning. What they represent is human behavior. Okay. Your job as an analyst is to tell a story about that behavior and how it relates to your business. And that's where you get actionable insights. There's no number that's going to tell you how to take action. You have to be really, really involved and have a conversation with your data. So let's talk about finding some simple data and metrics in your business that will leave really good clues. Now, to do this, I want to go back to some basics and talk about what is a funnel. I'm assuming that a lot of you have heard the term funnel. Maybe some of you haven't heard the term funnel. Either way, that's fine. But it's a way for most marketers to visualize a general client journey. How do they go from a lot of people seeing your marketing to turning that into money and bookings? And in general, most marketers will say there's three fundamental aspects of a funnel. There's awareness. Are people aware of you? If they're not, they can't book you, okay? There's consideration. Are you a good fit for these people who are now aware of you? For example, with my client, are they even in your market? If they're not in your market, they can't book your venue, right? They can't do business with you. So they need to be qualified enough to consider you. They need to determine that you're a good fit. And then once they determine you're a good fit, there comes the booking process. That might include a venue tour. It might include a sales consult. It might include follow-up emails, SMS. But ultimately, anything that you do in marketing, you should be able to show how it makes you money. And sure, one like on an Instagram post or one share on a TikTok video might not directly make you money, but you're going to want to try to understand how it contributes to making you money. So in plain language, awareness is how your brand and your venue gets found. Consideration is how potential clients evaluate you. And the booking aspect is how you're actually chosen to have them give you their hard-earned money. But all of it has to contribute to making you money. And the way that you do this is you have to account for all of the steps. Now, here is the bummer. Even if you're doing all of the right things and you're getting all of the likes, if you're just staying top of funnel, it's not going to get you very far, right? You have to account for all of the steps. This is an old meme from like the I think it was like 2016 or 2017, maybe 10 years ago, but I love it. I kept it. I use it a lot in my presentations. It's three kids that say, our mommy says, if we get 1 million likes, we won't get crap. If we want something, we have to work for it, not beg for it on Facebook. And the reason why I like to show this is because getting out there and getting seen and getting engagement is just the start of your customer's journey and your marketing journey. So when you're thinking about your marketing, don't just stop with social media. Don't just stop with your website. Think about all of the steps between somebody first becoming aware of you, all the way to signing the contract, and then all the way through the client care process and the event and getting the review. What I would like for you to do today is sort of reverse engineer your funnel and start with the last step. Okay. If you're not turning your venue tours into sales at a reasonable rate, at least 30%, you have a sales problem, not a marketing problem. You can file all this information in the back of your head, but fix your sales. There's plenty of information that wedding venue help desk has for you around sales and that final step. Okay. So focus on that first, make sure that's healthy, and then move out to marketing and anticipate a mess. People access your marketing and your assets and your website and your social media from a bunch of different devices. Like most people have at least two, if not three, some four. Sometimes there's 5 or 6 devices in a household between phones and laptops and iPads and all of the things, right? So anticipate a mess. There's not a nice, neat, linear line from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. People might toggle around a little bit. But in order to get the most insights out of your data and your metrics, and in order to measure what matters, it boils down to 2 things. One, are the metrics that you're looking at indicating that people are interested in you and you're able to deepen the relationship? So if you post a piece of content on Instagram, is it getting engagement? Yes or no? If people are engaging with your brand, you're deepening the relationship with your brand. Are people opening your emails? Yes or no? If they are, you're deepening the relationship. If not, they're ignoring you. There's no relationship there. If you're getting ghosted, there's no relationship there, right? So are you deepening the relationship? And the second one is, what is the next logical step that they should take on their booking journey? So if you're on social media and people are engaging with you, you need to do something else to not just deepen the relationship, but to move them to the next logical step, right? So if you're just inspiring them on social media, what's the next logical step to get them to consider you? Right? Is it moving them to a website? Is it DMing you about your prices and services? Is it getting them to engage with a different piece of content? But no matter what action you're taking, no matter what number you're looking at, that number and that action are going to indicate a deepening of the relationship or a move to the next logical step. It is as simple as that. Everything else is just extra information. So if we go back and look at the funnel, okay, we can start to apply a temperature. So maybe you've heard of cold traffic, warm traffic, hot leads, warm leads, things like that. And that just basically says, like, how deep is your relationship? If they're cold, they don't really know you very well. They might be aware of you in some ways, but they don't really know if you're a good fit and whatnot. And at this level, couples are generally looking for ideas, and they want to understand the look and feel of their wedding. They're looking for inspiration. And if you can just produce content that inspires and makes them aware of your brand and show up and makes you look like somebody to follow, that's great. That's great. That's a deepening of the relationship. Once they're a little bit warmer, they might start researching you, researching the type of venue you have. They start reviewing vendors. They start going on tours. They start looking at like how this is going to work in their destination, your destination. And this is where they start to evaluate you and consider whether or not they're going to give you the time of day and show up to the tour and do all the things. And then the bottom of the funnel, when they're really hot, they're in that booking cycle. From my standpoint, once somebody inquires and fills out a form, they're in that final booking stage and they're a hot lead, they're a hot prospect. And this is where they're actually evaluating you, and you have the most control over whether or not they choose you as a venue and book with you. So I said to anticipate a mess. I want to just really point out that in my book, there is not one funnel. When you're thinking of the next logical step and the deepening of the relationship, you might start to experience more of a nesting doll situation where you have funnels within funnels within funnels. So I want to kind of go over what this looks like from a social media, website, and email, SMS standpoint, but there's all sorts of different marketing that you can apply to this funnel within a funnel. But you want to think of awareness, consideration, and booking. And here's how it works. take a moment, no matter what data you are looking at, and ask yourself, what's actually going to move the needle for getting them to book? Okay, what's actually going to move the needle? If you have a great social media game and you are getting a whole bunch of people to fill out forms and inquire about your pricing, but nobody is booking tours, you don't need more marketing in social media, right? You need to focus on how to get them to show up to tours, whether that's automatic text reminders, whether that's giving them additional information through blog posts or PDFs or an Ask Me Anything live that they can attend that's exclusive for people who've inquired. Whatever it is, you have to think about what's going to move the needle for you today, not what somebody tells you you should be doing on the internet, okay? What's gonna move the needle for you today? So when it comes to funnels within funnels and what's gonna move the needle for you, there are some key signals that you can start with, okay? For social media, one signal that you can look at in your insights is reach. Are you getting seen? Okay. If you are not getting seen, if you're not being delivered, instead of complaining about being shadow banned, which sucks, I'm not going to lie, that's horrible. It's really, really, really difficult. You can also look at your content. If you feel like you're being shadow banned from an algorithmic standpoint, that's a content thing. If you're not being shadow banned and you're just being ignored by potential couples, it's still a content thing. So one insight you can get when you're looking at reach, instead of just saying like, oh, I've reached 10,000 people this month, ask yourself, is that enough? Am I getting seen? And if you don't feel like it's enough, adjust your content. Engagement. If your posts aren't getting engagement, people aren't actually noticing you, right? And that could be a content thing. It could also be a call to action. Ask them to like, ask them to take a poll, ask them to slide into your DMs, ask them to inquire about services, ask them what they like the most, ask them what style they're going through, ask them what the vibe of their wedding is going to be. If you engagement, which will help you get seen, put in a call to action. It doesn't have to be book our venue. It can be here's two different styles. Which vibe do you like the best? Right. And so if you want engagement, ask them to engage. And then outreach. Are they interested in you? Are they contacting you, DMing you, looking at your services on your webpage, looking at whatever you have in your link in bio? And if they aren't, think about how you are communicating the benefits and value of working with you, right? And so within social media, we have a little mini funnel. Reach is awareness, engagement is consideration, and outreach is the booking. See how that works? So just in social media, it has its own funnel. Same with your website, has its own mini funnel. Traffic. Did they notice you, right? So if you're not getting traffic, adjust your marketing. Now you go back up to social media, right? Funnels within funnels. If you're not getting any kind of engagement on your website, if they're not looking at multiple pages, if they're not scrolling, which you can look at out of the box with GA4, then adjust your content. If you're not getting conversions, if they're not filling out forms, adjust the benefits and values that you're communicating. Again, another little mini funnel within that website. And then finally, with your email and SMS, if they're inquiring whether you have an automated email and SMS system, which I recommend, or you're doing it by hand, which Ian has a lot to say about, so take some of his workshops as well. There are signals and there's a funnel, a little mini funnel within your email and SMS. If they're not opening your emails, they're not really noticing you in a crowded inbox, or if they're not responding to your text, they're not noticing you in a crowded feed. So you want to adjust the subject line or that big first sentence. If they're not clicking and taking action, you adjust the call to action. And if they're not converting, if they're not booking the tour or showing up to the tour, you might want to adjust your tone or your trust signals because it might not feel personal, or you might not seem trustworthy, right? So each platform can have its own funnels. If you're on a directory, then create your own funnel for that. If you're doing influencer marketing, you can create a funnel for that. And every single platform can have its own little funnel that contributes to a larger funnel. So let's connect the dots. I have another case study for you. This was when I was working for Mammoth Lakes Tourism. I was redesigning the website. I went to the metrics to see like how we should redesign it. And I saw strong traffic, low bounce rate, long time on site, multiple page views. I will tell you, it took me weeks to figure out what the problem was, because they weren't converting to bookings. They weren't I was a directory and I needed to refer bookings out, and I wasn't getting that outbound traffic to lodging. All of the things, all of the metrics came in saying I was doing a fantastic job on this website. I could not figure it out. And I started thinking about what the next best move for that traffic was. And what I discovered when I looked at that long time on site and the multiple page views is that each page view was only being viewed for a couple of seconds, not long to read. Even though I had a long 9-minute time on site, they weren't looking at page views long enough to get the information. Now, if you had found that breadcrumb trail, what would you think? You don't have to put it in the chat. Just take a moment to think, like, if you had strong traffic, low bounce rate, long time on site, multiple page views, but you noticed that they weren't spending a lot of time on any individual page, what would that tell you? For me, it told me that they were lost and that I had a navigation issue, not a design issue, right? Sometimes it takes a minute to understand what's going on. And again, the way you do that is you're tracking mini funnels within funnels, you're interrogating your data, you're trying to look at the big picture. There is no one size fits all. There is no make sure you measure this metric and everything's going to work out for you. You want to figure out what is the next best move, and are you moving them from one place to another? Okay, last case study. This is my favorite. So this is a picture of me. I just gotten off stage. I was at a conference speaking, and I'm having a great time with my friends. This is Braun, the flower guy from Virginia, and we always laugh and joke and stuff. And my phone starts just blowing up. And if you're a client of mine, a retainer client, you have access to me like 24/7. You can text me, like all the things, right? So my phone starts blowing up. What is going on? And I get this email from a client who had printed out their sales report and then marked up in red, not goods, weddings sold in March, right? And so I, again, back of the napkin, I just tried to gather the facts. Like, what are the facts that I know? And you always want to do this first. Get all of the facts that you know in front of you. You are always going to have more questions based on those facts. And that's when you start diving into new metrics to try to answer those questions. But the first thing you have to do is get all the facts in front of you. So here were the facts. Sales inquiries and tours drop every March. So I looked at year-over-year numbers and I saw that they weren't pacing that far behind previous years post-pandemic. Their monthly average was 300 inquiries a month. And out of that, they could get about 15 tours, okay? So out of all of the inquiries, they had a 5% inquiry to tour average. And then they had a 30% close rate, so they were getting 3 sales out of this. Now, they were thinking that they needed better marketing. I looked at these numbers and I thought, what can I do to move the needle the fastest? What's the one thing I can do to move the needle the fastest? So I started doing some math. Well, if I market more and I get more inquiries, how many inquiries am I going to need to have them, make their nut for the month? And the math said 600, and that wasn't going to happen in their market. I looked to the average tour rate. And I thought, okay, well, what if I doubled the average tour rate to 10%, which is a reasonable lift? And, I realized that if I got the average tour rate up to 10%, that I could turn those 15 tours into 30 tours. Okay, so double the tour rate, double the inquiry to tour rate, double the tour rate. And then if I got 30 tours, their average close rate, if it remained the same, would get them 10 sales. So exponentially more. So we didn't need more marketing. We needed to get those tours to show up so that they could sell to them. Right? So again, knowing your numbers is about assembling all of the facts and doing a little bit of math and asking a lot of questions so that you can make your next best move, not what the internet tells you, not what ChatGPT tells you. This type of human analysis it can be really, really much more useful than following, electronic advice or internet advice. But you have to take your time. You have to take your time. So what I want to do with you today is this. I want you to pull up your notes app, or if you're a pen and paper guy like me, pull out a piece of pen and paper, or pencil or whatever, and I want you to plan out a marketing experiment, okay? And I want you to use the scientific method, which I've talked a lot about, but just not in these terms. So I want you to first identify a problem. Figure out where your problem is, right? If you're getting a lot of engagement, if you feel like you're getting a lot of engagement and reach, and your marketing on social is great, and you're getting a lot of inquiries and tours, but they're not turning to leads, or they're not turning to sales, or people aren't visiting your website anymore, figure out where that gap is in that process, in that marketing journey, and identify it as a problem. Then you're going to take your time and try to look at all the facts, assemble all of the facts that you have available, and then interrogate those facts and make a prediction. Okay. Don't look at one number, two number, three numbers, right? Get your facts in front of you and then figure out what additional questions you might have, and then go to the data and try to, find some answers. And then once you think you have some answers, then you're going to want to set up your experiment. So in my last case study, I said, based on the facts and some additional research, I don't think you have a marketing problem. I think that you have a inquiry to tour problem. Let's set up an experiment where we automate and add additional emails and SMS messages to remind them to show up to the tour, and give them extra goodies and bonuses and information to help them make that decision. I believe that if we do that, if we add 3 extra emails and an SMS email reminder automation, we'll get their inquiry rate up. We did. Within 3 months, we got their inquiry to tour rate up to 20% from 5. 20% from 5, because I was focused on one thing based on a hypothesis that I had. Okay. So then you run the experiment, you're going to start getting more data in, and you're going to start looking at that data and ask, does it move the needle? And that's where you're going to analyze and say yes or no. This got us 20%, tour rate, or this didn't move the needle at all. Is there something else we need to look at? And then I want to just say a little bit on scaling. In the wedding industry, it's been my experience when we talk about scaling, it's really like, can you replicate results exponentially until it breaks? Because you are a location with a team and a staff, and you can't get 1 million bookings all quick. You just have a finite number of people, right? So at the point that it breaks, from a marketing perspective, great, stop scaling and then figure out how you're going to build out the rest of your business, right? Because scaling too much in marketing can actually break your business. So make sure that you're focused on where things break. So for your experiment, you're going to figure out what the experiment is, how, all the data you need, the facts, why it's important, what's your research question, the actions you're going to take, what you think will happen, how you're going to measure it, when your experiment will start, when it will end, and then name your experiment. Now here, is one thing I want to say in terms of starting and ending your experiment. Don't just start doing something forever. If you have a hypothesis or a prediction, figure out a reasonable amount of time for you to get enough data to make a decision up or down whether or not it worked. So for my client with the inquiry to tour rate, I felt like 3 months was enough time to show month over month, year over year incremental lift. Okay. But we want to have an end date where we can just discuss and evaluate and debrief and then optimize a little bit further from there. If you just start doing something without having an end date, you miss the opportunity to debrief yourself. I want you to remember there is no inherent meaning. You always want to look at your data through the lens of human behavior. What are the metrics telling you about the actions that people are not taking, and why? You can go back to the grid that I went through in terms of the funnels within funnels to determine, what action you can take based on that human behavior. Get as close to your money as possible first. If you have a sales or booking problem or an inquiry to tour rate, you've got to fix that before you fix the awareness or consideration stuff in your marketing. Because if you constantly focus on awareness and consideration, which is a lot of social media and a lot of directory listings, and you have a problem converting all of that interest into actual leads and bookings, all of the extra marketing out into the internet and the world isn't going to save you at a certain point, because we have local markets. Your city is a certain size. There's only so much you can grow within that location, right? And then lots of traffic or long time on site or high engagement on social media. It could be an opportunity. It could also be a problem. Again, interrogate your data through the lens of your business and what's going on in your business. Okay, so I have a couple of minutes. I want to walk you through this custom benchmarks and tracker that I created just for you. If you use this QR code, it will bring you to a sign up where you will get access to a Google Sheet that you can copy. And I'm going to take 5 minutes to walk you through how it works, and then I'm going to take questions. But basically, you're going to set up your own benchmarks. There's a little calculator in there that will take you through the same process that I went through with my client that had the inquiry to tour problem. And then from there are different awareness, consideration, and metrics for each platform that will automatically calculate and give you pacing for an entire year based on your goals and what you should be making. So you just take a picture of this QR code, and you'll just fill out your first name and your email address. I just switched over to Flowdesk last week, so I'm super excited about using this platform. I've resisted it for a long time because of some tracking noodly data type things, the issues I had with it. But now that I'm in there, I'm absolutely in love with how beautiful it is. So I hope you find it beautiful as well. But if you do have any problems, please email me or contact me at Christie@mountainsidemedia.com. So I will switch over to my template. Okay. Once you have access to this template, anything in blue you're going to want to ignore. But say you want to make $2.5 million in a year, right? Or next year, or whenever, in the next 12 months, okay? And your average booking value is $12,500. And for every 10 consults, you close 3. You are going to fill this out. I don't care what number you want to, what money you want to make, what booking value, you fill this out. But then it's going to automatically calculate, and we're going to get real with the numbers here. It's going to automatically calculate that you need 208,000 and some change every month to meet your revenue goal. This is an eye opener for a lot of people. We talk about like wanting to make $5 million or $10 million, but we don't really pay attention to like what that means month over month and week over week. That means that you're going to need 16.67 bookings each month to meet your revenue goals. These are 16 sales, and that means you're going to need 56 consults every month. So if these seem like impossible numbers, you need to start adjusting over here. This will auto calculate, but you're going to adjust over here. Once you have your own business benchmarks about what you think you can accomplish every month by playing around with these numbers, you're going to get an auto calculation on the revenue tab for your goals. So you see that 56 consults, 17 bookings, 30% close rate, revenue is all calculated for you. And then again, anything in blue, don't touch it. It's their formulas in here. Don't try to touch it. But anything in white, every single month, and you can change the names. You can say, starting in September, October, November, they're divided by quarter, or you can keep it month 2, 3, 4, 5. But you're going to put in every month how many consults and tours you actually got and how many bookings you actually got. And what this will do is it will tell you your close rate and compared to the benchmark, and then it will give you pacing. I love pacing because sometimes we'll be ahead in Q1 and then behind in Q2, but it averages out, right? So that gets us out of freaking out every single month if things go a little bit soft, all right? And then you have different platforms. So we have email, SMS, website, and social. Again, all of the goals are here and calculated for you. And then you put in for your email how many signups you get, how many sends you did, how many opens, and then it will give you your open rate. You put in how many clicks. And this is where you're going to go to your email marketing platform analytics and put in as much as you can. Same for your website. Every month you're going to go to your website, you're going to put in your traffic, your events for GA4, your user engagement for GA4, and it will auto calculate things and give you pacing. And then the same for social media. And then finally, on the final tab for consults, it will auto calculate your email and website, but you might have to put in how many consults you're getting actually from social, direct inquiries, a directory, other, whatever. But what this will do is instead of having to go through this entire presentation that I did for you every single month, you can start here to calculate your benchmarks and then use these tabs as a quick and dirty reporting that will show you where your pacing is at and whether or not you're up or down. And then you can go back to the presentation and say your open rates for your emails is tanking consistently. Go back to your this presentation and you determine what that means, right? You need to adjust the subject line. So that is the benchmarking calculator. I hope you love it. I love it. I've used it with some actual clients. And with that, I will take questions. We have a couple of minutes, about 10 minutes left for questions.
Well, first of all, Christie, thank you. At my family's venue, Madera Estates. So I'm over sales and tours. So a big deal for us is at the end of the month, we have our sales meeting to talk about, the previous 30 days. And then we have a quarterly meeting. The custom benchmark and tracking guide that you just gave us, that's going to be worked into our meeting. So thank you so much. That's already huge for us too. So hopefully everyone on the Power Hour call today can take advantage of that. Because again, if you don't know your numbers, how do you make decisions? You don't, the crystal ball that we all try to predict, and especially with the changing economy, we've got to be able to nail down our goals and then basically what we say bob and weave to get those results. Well, good. Let's take some questions. Remember, you want to set your chat to everyone. If you have a question for Christie, I'm going to read them out from the chat and then present those to her. Do we have any questions out there? Is everyone just mind blown?
Well, I have to say, Shannon's always telling me like, make it simple, make it simple, make it simple. And so this is a constant process for me. I know that I am giving a lot of information all at once, which is why the spreadsheet I think will really help.
Yes.
And then those grids within the presentation will really help. If you think it would be helpful, I can either I can either give you the presentation. I'll just email you you all that sign up the presentation, or I can email you those slides to get you started. But really, this spreadsheet, once you get your numbers in, and here's the thing, you want to make $10 million, and that ends up meaning that you have to make $1 million a month, and you're like, oh, I
Right.
can't make $1 million a month. Then you're going to start to have to adjust things down and play with things until you feel like you can accomplish that monthly revenue, and you can accomplish that number of consults, inquiries to consults. I have found, playing around with these things with clients, they have these big goals and they get really excited with somebody like on stage telling them like, you could do it. And then we get down into like brass tacks and they're like, we can't get that many,
Yeah, there's
we
such
can't get that many consults every month. And so that kind of tells you like how to adjust, not just your expectations, but start small and build up incrementally.
Yeah. And that pacing, like you had mentioned earlier, is so important because you may be ahead of goal, but be able to adjust from that. Kimberly had asked, is this going to be recorded? Yes. So make sure you're following Venue Help Desk on our social, especially we do have a Facebook group too called the Venue Help Desk Insiders. So we will post this into the Facebook group. Also, we have an Instagram too. So I'm over our social media as well. So I'll get that up as soon as possible. But this will be recorded. Okay. Amelia says, love Christie's info and mindset around this. We're experiencing an inquiry to tour problem. Email open rates are great. Follow-up is 7 to 14 emails long and semi-customized. Working on how to increase the leads to tours. Any tips would be great.
Okay, I have two things. One is sort of a general thing, and then the other is a very specific thing that you can look at with your business. The way that I got the inquiry to tour rate up for this client was I bought the wedding venue help desk email autoresponder templates for $50. I was talking to Shannon about it. This is what happens. Consultants will talk to each other all the time when they're dealing with problems. She was like, buy my thing. And it was great. I didn't use all of the emails, but I started to see an actual lift immediately just using some of the templates and modifying them. I also, around that time, took a power hour with Ian where he talked specifically about increasing the inquiry to tour rate. And so like, I'm an analyst, I'm looking at the numbers, but I'm not necessarily always the greatest expert in how to, execute on the thing. And this is not just a sycophantic plug for Wedding Venue Help Desk, but that's actually what I did, and that moved the needle. So for you, in terms of how to increase the leads to tours, you have a lot of data coming in already. So you have 7 to 14 emails. Oftentimes with sequences, what I'm looking for is the sequence long enough, or is it too long, or is it too short? And so what you want to do is you want to just like line up all of your emails. You can put this into a spreadsheet, right? Like line up all of your emails, what your goal is, what the action you want people to take once they open it, and then look at your open rates and click rates for each email. And if you find that there's a drop off on email 3 and they're not opening email 4 anymore, you want to make sure that you are asking them to either book a tour immediately and trying to create some sort of time pressure, like our calendar is filling up, or October is our busiest month, and in Madeira Estates we have 3 weddings left. If you want to book in October, you better get on the calendar, because if they're not looking at email 12 by the time you're asking for the tour, you're not going to get the tour. And so if you look for where you see the fall off in that sequence and try to build in really powerful calls to action that motivate them to book that tour. And then make sure you're following up. Most SMS systems, whether it's Active Campaign or even Calendly has a built-in SMS system, or whatever you Entreport, make sure you're reminding them and giving them goodies along the way.
Great, 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 great. All right, we have a question from Marlon. Marlon asked, we are new into the social media for our venue, and information is very helpful, especially since we are planning on rebranding and would like to have a system in place to kick it out of the park. What advice would you give us to focus on first, to start right on track?
If you're rebranding, it's going to be really important to get all of your benchmark data in place pre-brand. So you're just going to collect data. You're going to figure out what your average website traffic was, your average engagement was, your average inquiry rate was. On social media, you're going to figure out what your average engagement rate was, your audience growth, your DMs, anything like that, because you're going to want to have a really clean and clear picture pre-rebrand and post-rebrand, because if you have persistent problems from pre-rebrand to post-rebrand, it wasn't a rebrand. It was something else that you needed to address, okay? So a lot of times people rebrand and are hoping that everything's gonna automatically fall into place. And when it doesn't, it takes extra time to collect data. So get all of your baseline metrics in a row so that you can do a nice, clean pre-brand and post-brand comparison, and then go from there.
Great. Amelia, thank you for the shout out. Yes, if you want to go on the Venue Help Desk website at venuehelpdesk.com, there are some free resources, and we also have some paid resources for items, especially if you're needing something quick, you can download and go from there.
I mean, $50 to go from like, three or five, whatever, 10 tours to 30. Like
Yeah.
that was money well spent. And I didn't even charge the client. I was just like, I'm gonna buy this for myself and try to figure it
Good.
out. It was amazing.
Yeah, we use Madera Estates too as a testing ground. So I'm kind of the lab. So anytime we want to try something new, we'll go back. I love test and learn. That is my favorite. I know you too. And so again, a lot of these are things that we have utilized in our own venue that has been success for us, and we love to share that. All right. Shannon Perez writes, I second Amelia's problem here. Also, what is the email automation most of the venues are using for lead nurturing? I use HoneyBook for planning management, but the automated texting nurturing is not an option for them. Lastly, what is everyone using again via text to share a professional looking brochure or packages info once they inquire? Do you have any suggestions on that, and any of the venues too that are successful? Please
I,
chime in.
I, yeah, I feel like that kind of leads into the next question about sharing pricing packages as a hidden landing page rather than a PDF. My
Yes.
answer is the same anyway. Do you recommend one or the other? So I'm going to kind of talk about email marketing in general. So first of all, when it comes to like setting up sequences, you can do what you want. Different people do different things. I've heard people say 7 to 12 emails. Personally, I try to limit the number of data that I am working with in the beginning until I form a hypothesis. I start with 3 emails. Here's your thing. Here's a tip. Book a tour. If all emails get opened and they don't book a tour, I start adding information because they don't have enough information about the venue to make a decision about fit. Okay. If they're not opening one of the emails, I adjust the subject line, right? But generally, if I start with those first 3 and I try to get that tour on the third, at least the third email, I always have calls to action to reply, even the first email with any questions. And I have low key calls to action to book a tour in every single email. But that third email is just a single message about booking a tour and why they want to do it early. And then just build out from there. When it comes to what people are using for their email autoresponders or SMS messaging, honestly, I don't care. I'm very platform agnostic. I work with a lot of different types of clients that use all sorts of different platforms, and it's not the platform. As long as your content can be delivered, it's the messaging and how much value you can come to the table with in order to give them enough information to say, yeah, I want to book a tour. And then the last thing about hidden landing pages versus PDF versus this versus that. One issue that you might find with a hidden landing page is that, especially if they're going on their phone and they don't bookmark it, they will sign up every time they need to access it.
Yes.
Right. And so this is a problem because then you start getting spam complaints because,
Yes.
and so like you can do all these things like only allow them to sign up once on an email, but then if they don't have the information, they're just going to ignore you and go with the venue where they can access the information. Right. Or they'll sign up with different emails and they'll unsubscribe from one email and then or they booked a tour and they get out of the system
And it skews your
automatically, but
numbers
then you're
too.
still,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's a mess. And so I like to make the assumption that I can't control people on the internet. I don't know where this comes from, but I just don't think I can control people on the internet. So I do all of it. I have a hidden landing page. They can download a PDF. I send it to their email. I will text it to them with a link, right? And that way, there are multiple ways to access that. And if you want to be really great and clever, and you know that people are not downloading the email because your metrics say it, or they're asking questions that should have been answered in your one sheet, and it's not it's not a 25-page PDF that nobody's going to read. Then you can start having reminders like, hey, if you've lost the PDF or if you need it again, here it is. Here's our pricing. Oh, your tour is coming up. Wanted to give you our pricing and services just as a reminder so you can prepare for the tour. So don't just give it to them once, give it to them multiple times and in multiple ways so that they can control and select how they're going to consume the information.
Yeah, we even in Madeira states in our SMS, once they download the pricing guide, of course, it sends the welcome, the automated before I jump on, but it also sends a link to the pricing guide again, because it was daily, multiple downloads from the same person. So we knew there was a problem.
And
Uh,
you're like, stop.
yeah, and
But
now
people,
it has slowed down because of that. And I love
yeah,
that.
I
I
love
hope,
that too.
Amelia, I hope that answered your question too, about hidden landing pages for the pricing guide and packages. Good,
I
good.
love the hitting landing pages because you can just like structure it
Yes.
like a landing page and it's really scannable. But then like the PDF, they can download it, like to their device or if on their computer, if they have a laptop, they want to look at it at work or at night or whatever. And so like give them a lot of options to access and consume your content easily.
Shannon Perez asked a really good question, and Christy, you may have some advice on this. How do you create a downloadable pricing guide and link?
You creating Canva because that's the best thing ever. And once you download it, you should be able to upload it to either your website as a piece of media. So if you're using something like Squarespace or
Mhm.
WordPress, when you upload media, it will say like, here's the link to your media, and you just grab that link. You can also put it on a Dropbox if you want to. You can upload the PDF to Dropbox and link to Dropbox or Box. You can also make it view only in Canva or turn it into like a website in Canva and make it, there's all sorts of ways to do it. But to actually create the downloadable, use a template in Canva.
I love that. Yeah, I love
And
those
can I
links.
say one last thing about downloads? Don't play lawyer in your services and pricing
Mhm.
packaging. Like save that for when they're signing the contract. Don't tell them what they can't do and how you put all you can do this and this and this is da da da. Like all of that detail that you're going to answer in the sales call, just answer it in the sales call.
Yeah,
You really want that services and pricing to be more like a brochure, like if you cruise and you get the cruise brochure, they don't tell you how many lifeboats and that you have to take the
No.
safety thing right in the brochure. Like they save that until you're on the boat and you can't escape, and then you're like standing there in your lifeboat thinking about how many, or the life jacket thinking about
Right, you
how
don't
many
know it till
lifeboats
you
are.
know.
But they don't do that with the brochure. So treat the brochure like a piece of marketing collateral, not like prepping them to contract with you.
Yeah, and that's what your tour is for, is to be able to go over those things with them too, with those questions. Let's see, any other questions for Christie? All right. Well, Christy, thank you so much. You have been a
Thank
huge
you.
supporter of Venue Help Desk and a resource for our venue pros, and we cannot thank you enough for sharing your wealth of knowledge, especially with the custom benchmarks and tracking guide that you gave us today. That's huge, even for me today. So I'll be using that. Again, if you're interested in joining us on these monthly power hours, we host them usually mid-month. I'll be launching Who is Next month. So these are always going to be focused on venue pros. We welcome all of your team members also to join us too. And again, follow our social media. And one important announcement. August this month, we launched our brand new podcast called the Venue to Help Desk Line. You can actually call into it. It's anonymous too. We have had some really good calls. Both myself, my husband Ian, and our partner Shannon will answer those questions. They're very short, they're car length too. So while you're driving to your venue, you can hear those. We are now on episode 2 that comes out to actually today. And then my episode next week, how to deal with the mom who has booked the tour for the daughter, and the daughter hasn't even done any research. How do you handle that? So I'm on that podcast next week. Again, please subscribe to that as we grow that platform too for Venue Help Desk. So again, Christy, thank you so much with all the knowledge, and we'll see you at the next Power Hour.
Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you guys.